even though I'm passionate about music, like Hades is a business. It's a project because it is a job. It's a job that I'm passionate about and that I'm grateful for, and I put a lot of my own self and creativity into, but it's still like a separate entity from me as a human being.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is an incredibly talented artist, music producer, singer, songwriter, and performer. She has been bridging the worlds of electronic music and rock, releasing on huge dance labels like Mousetrap and Monster Cat, while at the same time writing and producing for massive bands, including Bring Me the Horizon. She has an incredible success story that I'm excited to dive into and share with you guys. This is the queen of the underworld, HVDES.
Hi.
What's up, my friend? So good to see you.
Good to see you too. Been forever.
Um, First things first, EDC. You
Yeah.
just played EDC for the very first time a couple days ago.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Tell me about it, because that is pretty awesome. First off, congratulations. Like, what a huge milestone in your career.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really, I mean, I think it was just really surreal. Obviously, like, playing the actual stage and doing the DJ stuff is like awesome and it's really incredible experience because there's just so many people. But I think more so just like kind of the feeling I had going into it, like all my friends were there. I was just surrounded by like so many people that just like they're like rooting for me because of me and like just reflecting back to a couple years ago and then just thinking about now and I got pretty emotional. I don't know, just one of those moments where I was just really I don't know, like, there's so many times I feel like, I think about myself, like, day 1 of sobriety or, like, back in, like, 2018, 2019, I wish I could be like, "Hey, it's all gonna work out,"
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I was so scared and, like, they thought everything was just gonna go to shit and nothing would ever be okay ever.
Yeah. I feel like EDC is this sort of career milestone. It's like the mountaintop for a lot of people, right? I want to play what is the biggest festival in North America, one of the biggest music festivals in the world.
I think it's the biggest in the world now.
Yeah, yeah. So I imagine you've been dreaming about that and thinking about that for a long time, as many other artists are. What was it like to actually be up there? Was it like you expected? Was it different? What was it like?
I mean I have started to do this thing where, like, every show, I put my expectations at 0, and I just assume that it's gonna be horrible, so that every single time it's, like, awesome, even if there's not that many people there. It was really cool because I felt like the crowd was really just with me the whole time, like, it's very rare, especially during club shows, a lot of times you have to do a little bit more, like, crowd working, like, you have to kind of get on the mic more and be more, like, involved. I don't really like being on the mic that much, so it was nice that I had got to do, like, minimal amounts of that and just felt like they were totally with me, like, it was awesome. I mean, it was really crazy, and then, like, watching the videos from it, I'm just like, "Whoa, like,
Yeah.
that's wild," and I think that, I think it's really important just to be, like, grateful and kind of sit with that because you're always gonna want more, like,
Yeah.
you get booked for this festival and then you wanna play later and you want more money and then, you want and so it's, like, really important for these kinds of things to just, like, be, I don't know, grateful
Yeah.
and, like, present with it. But, yeah, it was really awesome. I saw a lot of people that really mattered a lot to me over the weekend, and just the fact that my whole team was there and they ride so hard for me and, like, my best friends were there, and they were telling me how proud they were of me, and it was really cool because it was just
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, look, you deserve it. You've earned it. You've worked your ass off. I've known you for a long time. You
I
were
know.
one of my music business students at Icon Collective. I don't know how many years ago.
In 2016.
Yeah, so a long time, and
Yeah.
I've seen your journey, and I know it hasn't been easy. And you mentioned sobriety a moment ago, and I know that that was a big part of your journey and a big challenge, and also something though that you have really gotten to the other side of now. How long have you been sober?
Um, I will look. I have it on
Check
my
the
phone.
app.
Check the app, yeah. It's been 3 years, 4 months, 4 days, 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 51 seconds.
Let's fucking go. I always talk about how a huge part of my coaching process and philosophy is celebration, and I just really want to take this moment to celebrate you and really really acknowledge you
Thank you.
because yeah, I know it's not easy, but you're a fucking badass and I'm just so proud
Thank
of you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, with my sobriety, like I always am just like, what the fuck? Like it's so weird because like I think that especially before I got sober, like drugs and alcohol were just such a part of like my whole life and identity. And I never thought that this would ever be like possible. So it's definitely a trip. Every time I think about it, I'm just like, what?
Yeah. And when you were in that, I think for a lot of artists and especially in the dance music community, it's like the whole industry is economically run around drugs and alcohol. People go to the
Yeah,
parties, so it's like it's very accepted. And so
for
I'm
sure.
I'm curious about like, what your relationship was with it and with partying, and did you see anything wrong with it at that time, or was it just like, hey, this is who I am and like this is part of being an artist? Because I get the
Yeah.
impression that sometimes, you know, artists are it's just part of the lifestyle, and it's everybody encourages it in a way, and it's like it's okay. It's like, yeah, you're an artist, you get to party,
Yeah.
right?
It's definitely romanticized for sure, and that's not just in dance music, just in music in general. Because it's like that whole, like, archetype of the, like, fucked up, tortured artist is like, pervades the music industry, and it's, like, really, really I do think that, like, as of recent years, it started to change a little bit just as this kind of flip side of the, like, oversaturation with the rise of, like, the independent artist just because the era of, like, there only being one Kurt Cobain or one Amy Winehouse is over, like, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that are super hungry, so it's like, if you're too difficult to work with because of your habits, your drug habits, your alcohol habits, like you're probably not going to get very far. And that's not like, it's not like a totally fixed problem. It's definitely still like very real, but I do notice it getting a little bit better, especially just with like people being more aware of you know, like fentanyl being and everything. And, like there's a lot of different pieces to it. But I've thought a lot about this and I think like there are a lot of people that behave, like, addictively or engage addictively when it comes to, like, drugs and alcohol and music because of, like, overabundance and, like, accessibility. But for me, I am, like, a drug addict. Like, I am, like, the, like, textbook definition of an addict. Like, it's not just because of convenience. Like, I will go out of my fucking way to get high, to get drugs, and I've always been like that. Like, I've been like that since I was, like, a kid.
Yeah.
I've always been into drugs, and I think, like, a big piece of it, which I realized recently, was that I think, like, I was always, like, bullied, and I always had, trouble, like, socially with things, especially, like, being on the spectrum and, like, not really understanding it, like, as a kid. Because especially when I was a kid, like, you think of, like, the autistic kid, and you think of, like, the boy on the playground that, like, says really off-putting shit and, like, doesn't wanna talk to you at all, but the way that it presents in women is so different because women are typically way more, like, socially aware and emotionally aware
Yeah.
than men are. At the end of the day, like, it just wasn't really understood and how it presents in, like, women. I remember, like, I was diagnosed when I was, like, 14, but me and my dad were just kind of like, "No,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
real." But since then, I've always done drugs, and I think, like, drugs obviously, like, made me feel, like, more okay with, like, myself, but also gave me this, like, bridge to people, that,
Yeah.
like, made me be like, "Oh, like, I do drugs, you do drugs, like, let's do drugs together." Like, I have drugs, so, like, feeling like I was a part of or like valued in some capacity, I think was like a big part of it. I've always been kind of like that, like, weird kid. I don't know, like, even when I was, like, younger, and my therapist and I have talked a lot about this because sometimes I watch, like, my neurotypical friends, like, interacting with people, and it's, like, fascinating because 'cause I'm just like, "Wow, like,
Yeah.
I want to be
What
like that."
and when did music, I know you were a classically trained pianist, right? Like, you grew up playing music really young. When did becoming an artist become part of your identity as well? Has that always been there?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, like, artistic. I started playing piano when I was really young, and, well, first started playing violin because I was like, "I wanna play the violin." My dad was like, "What instrument do you wanna play?" And I was like, "Nothing." And then he was like, "No, you have to pick one." And I was like, "Okay, violin." And then I switched to the piano for no other reason other than I was lazy and I wanted to sit down while I practiced because I hated standing up and playing the violin. And I, like, practiced a lot, like, my dad was, like, really hard on me when I was, like, younger, just forcing me to practice and things like that, and,
Do you
I'm
think
grateful for it
did
now.
that carry over into how you approach music production?
No, not at all. That's a big reason why I, like, ended up going to school for music production because I know that, like, I wouldn't have been able to, like, push myself to do it on my own. I just don't
Yeah,
have that discipline, or at least at the time, I definitely didn't have it.
yeah,
Even though I fucked around a lot in school, like, it still gave me, like, a little bit more structure and a little bit more, like, "Hey, like, do this. This is due by this day," which made it a little bit easier for me to, like, do that kind of stuff because I just didn't have a very strong sense of discipline or time management at the time. But I mean, the skills like musically definitely transferred over into my music production, not necessarily the discipline of practicing, but yeah, so music has definitely been a
yeah.
part of my life for a long time.
When did you decide that you wanted to get into music production and be an artist?
It just kind of was this thing that, like, unfolded as it unfolded. Like, I never, like, was like, "Oh, I wanna be a DJ," or, "I wanna be an electronic music producer." Like, I was in treatment, when I was 16, 17. I went to this, like, therapeutic boarding school residential treatment center type thing for kids, and that was kinda when they're like, "Okay, well, like, what do you wanna do?" And previous to that, I'm like, "I don't fucking know." Like, I don't know. But, I had a friend that went to the LA Film School for music production, and he was kinda talking to me about it. I didn't even know there was a difference between music production and engineering. I didn't know anything about any of it because, like, my dad's a composer and, like, a musician, but he's not, like, a producer, you know?
Yeah.
So, I didn't really understand, like, what all of that meant or like the differences between things. So then I just went to the LA recording school and they kind of explained to me the difference between recording engineering and like music production. And I was just like, okay, I guess I'll do music production. So I went there for that and I would do like the little projects and then they would always end up sounding a bit more like dancey even though I really don't have any history with the rave scene or the rave culture, like, I went to my first rave in, I think, 2014, which was, like, maybe the same year that I was started going to that school. It was a cool, like, school. I really didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do, so it was nice to have that kind of, like, introduction. But I definitely like, my projects always leaned a little bit more, like,
Yeah.
into the electronic side, and so we had this project at the end of the program where we had to, like, brand a project or whatever, and that's kinda when I came up with Hades, and at
Which
that
is
time it
so fucking sick. I think you have the coolest brand in the world. Like, it's so dope.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so
Well, the
good.
brand, I think, developed over a long period of time. At the time, it was more so just like, "Oh, this is a cool name,"
Yeah.
and, like, you
That's
know?
that's actually really cool to see because, I work with a branding agency out of Orange County called the Cult Creatives, and we do a lot of really cool, fun branding stuff for artists. Usually, the way I've always seen it is it's like the brand is the package. It's like the wrapping paper that you put
Yeah.
that you present your gift in, and it's almost like you had the packaging before you actually had the product, right? You kinda had the
Yeah.
box before you even had the gift made and figured out.
Yeah, well, I think, like, the way that I launched this project was so, like, informal, like, I was just putting shitty beats on SoundCloud, and I'm like, like, "This is what I am doing," and it
Yeah.
was so, like, informal, and then I just started meeting, like, I was going to, like, Space Yacht, and was going, like, to different festivals and stuff. I just randomly, like, started meeting people, and I was, like, DJing these little, like, parties in LA, like, these little, like, backyard parties and warehouse parties and stuff, and over time, it just became, like, a thing, and it was very much, like, not planned, and then after a while, I realized, like, "Oh, like, I should keep doing this because like, it's working," you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, it was working, but, you were also still kind of going through your, recovery process, and you still had, like, drugs and alcohol as part of your life. How is that affecting things as you look back to what life kind of used to be like when you were in that
Like, how it
phase?
affected me like that at that
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, I guess for one, I'm curious about, like, creatively, like, as far as the actual music that you were making, but also just in your career and professionally as well.
I definitely leaned on it as, like, a crutch and, like, believed that it was helping my creativity or whatever, which is totally not true at all. I
Yeah.
mean, there are certain ideas I might have had when I was high that I wouldn't have had sober, but, like, that creativity, like, is still there. It's
Yeah.
just like
And I see that a lot. I see that a lot where people are like, "Oh, I gotta, like, smoke weed to get creative," or "I gotta, like, have some
yeah,
drinks to, like, loosen up," and it's like, you think so, but like you said, the creative energy is there. The
yeah.
muse is
It's
there.
literally Yeah, it's literally not a real thing at all. But, like, and at that time, like, I really believed that to be, like, true, so I'm not gonna, like, argue with somebody, but as somebody that's, like, come out of that and rediscovered creativity, I think it's, like, just learning how to, like, channel it in a different way. I would compare it to, like, instead of taking, like, a supplement to get some sort of vitamin, like, you start, like, cooking it in your food, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing, but it's like you're approaching it in a slightly different way.
Yeah. You're getting it from the raw source rather
Yeah.
than the fake source, right?
Yeah, it's like this kind of false sense of, like, being super tapped in to, like,
Yeah.
your
And
creativity and spirituality or whatever.
so I hate to admit this, but, like, I hadn't really been keeping up with what you were making. Like, you'd sent me a track, like, a little while back that I had heard, which was sick. And today I, like, sat down and I listened to the recent songs, and
Really?
I'm so fucking blown away, and I am, like, even I was already a fan, but I'm even so much more of a fan now. Like, you've been I feel like you've hit your stride so much in your songwriting. Like, it's just a different level. It's just so polished and mature, and also being a metalhead and someone that loves rock, like, you're
Yeah.
bringing in, like, so much more of this rock side. It's just fucking sick. Like, it really really shows where you're at creatively, and it's
Thank
like
you.
like noticeably different.
The stuff that I've made, like, since I got sober is feels a lot more, like, authentic to me, like, as a person. And not to say that the stuff that I was making before was not authentic to me, but it was authentic to an inauthentic version of me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can hear it, like, a lot of times too, like, when I look at, like, my Facebook memories or things, like, I can, like, see how hard, like, I was masking and, like, trying to, like, be a part of or, like, be like other people that I wanted to be, like, accepted by.
Yeah.
And I think, like, part of just this whole, like, sobriety, like, healing journey or whatever has just been, like, getting in touch with because you know, when you're a kid and, like, you like things in such a pure way and it's just, like, before you the world tells you that it's, like, not cool or that you're lame for liking it, and so my earliest influences, like, go back to bands like My Chemical Romance and Under Oath and, like, Green Day and things like that, and that was before all of my, like, friends or people that I was knew told me that, like, "Oh, that's, like, not a cool thing to like," or whatever, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think that, like, now the things that I'm doing are really just, like, channeling that kind of, like, very pure connection that I had to these early influences in a way that's, like, current, I guess, or just using, like, the skill set that I have.
Yeah. I mean, like, it sounds like you kinda stopped caring about what other people thought or are doing, what was that process like to get back in touch with those influences, and it sounds like there was some letting go of like caring about other people's opinions.
It was really lonely, I think, at first. And the thing is, like, I was lonely already because, like, I would have these experiences where I'd be out with friends or, like, at a festival or whatever, and you could just, like, feel that, like, loneliness or, like, feel like you're in this room full of people, but you still feel, like, really fucking alone. I feel like getting sober, I definitely was really lonely for, like, a while because like, you figure out, like, who cares and who
Mm,
doesn't when
yeah,
you have nothing to offer them,
yeah,
you know? So I really just, like, noticed a lot of those things, and it was sad in a lot of ways, like, with certain people that I really truly, like, believed were my friends, but there were a couple that stuck around and came through that with me, and there were a lot of new friends that I made, and there was also, like, people that I'd been friends with for a long time, but not really close with,
yeah.
who like, people that were sober, like, Lil Texas is, like, probably my best friend in the whole world, one
He's
of my best
sick.
friends in the whole world.
Yeah.
He and I have been friends for a very long time, but, like, I never hung out with him because I wasn't sober and I was
Mm,
partying and he is sober and, like,
yeah,
so I just kind of, like, adjusted a bit. But, yeah, it definitely is, like, lonely at first because you feel like nothing is real,
yeah.
but your brain, like, tricks you into thinking that, like, that's because you let go of, like, the toxicity, but the reality is, like, I still felt that way when I was, like, doing drugs. I still felt that, like, feeling of loneliness or whatever.
And I can imagine that that whole process is it's going to be painful in a lot of different ways, but any sort of transformation is always painful because you have to go through the death of a version of yourself and a
Yeah.
death of a lifestyle, right? The death of certain mindsets, the death of who you used to be in order to step into that next version of you are, and that process of letting go can be really hard, right? Like shedding that
Yeah.
skin,
It
and
is tough.
but it's also like we have to clear the stuff off of our plate to make room for the stuff that we really, really want to be there. And we're
Yeah.
oftentimes so attached to familiarity or attached to our old friendships. We're attached to these, things that we're so used to. But if you want to live a life that you've never lived, if you want to achieve goals that you've never achieved, and you want to get to that level, like you have to
Yeah.
let go. You have to clear space, right? And I think that's where a lot of people are stuck. Is it's like I don't want to let go of what I know, even if it like hurts and even if it fucks me up.
For sure. And I still have those, like, kind of thought patterns sometimes, like, not wanting to let go of things that are toxic to me or whatever in, like, way more, like, nuanced situations than before. Because before it was just, like, so dramatic and, like,
Yeah.
chaotic, but, like, I still notice those same, like, thought patterns, but I don't know if I ever would've if things weren't as, like, fucking catastrophically dumpster fire horrible as they
Yeah.
were because I'm really stubborn and I had a lot of moments of clarity, but like clarity means nothing without subsequent action, you know? I had a lot of those moments where you have kind of a moment of ego death and clarity, but if you don't do anything, like
Yeah.
you can't think your way, you can't like think or like conceptualize your way into like living or doing or being better. You have to act your way into
Yeah.
it because being is like an action,
You have
right? I don't know, I'm really grateful for it, and I think about this all the time where I'm like, because there's so many people that don't get it, and not just, like, in sobriety, but just in life, and it's like, what not just, like, the catalyst for change, but, like, what was the change, like, identifying, like,
yeah.
what was the shift, and, like, I don't 100% know, but, like, I do feel like I was just so, like, broken as a person that I just at some point was just like, "Okay, I need help." And I was broken enough and my ego was, like, broken enough to be able to, like, receive, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
What did you actually do? What were your first steps to turning the corner and getting the support that you needed and actually making the changes that you've been able to stick with?
I was so, like, down horrendous. I was so miserable. I was so broke. I felt so, like, alone and miserable. I would like couldn't pay my rent. Like my whole life was just in shambles and it was just like awful. And then one day I just decided I was like, I can't do this anymore. Also realizing that like I'm gonna die if I keep going.
Yeah.
That's not even like being dramatic. Like I'm surprised I'm not
Yeah.
dead right now
Yeah.
because like I was really like playing with fire. One day I remember I just started calling around like some rehabs and stuff and I like reached out to my parents and like this lady who had helped me previously. I was just like I need help and I don't feel good like asking for it, but I need it. I need to like go to rehab. I need to do something different.
If anybody out there is struggling and they know that they need help and they're struggling with addiction, I want them to know that they do have resources available. And I think
Yeah.
the Music Cares offer or whatever it is that they do, I think was pretty rad. Can you speak into that a little bit to share?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like who you are and how, I guess, relevant you are in the music industry. Depends on like how much funding they'll give you. I don't 100% like know exactly, but it is an awesome program. I just basically like applied through their website. I had a friend that went to rehab through them and told me to go because rehab is expensive, especially like those nice rehabs. The most recent one I went to, I got through, like, state insurance at the time because I had no money. Program ended up being amazing. The other one I went to was amazing too, I wasn't ready. But
Yeah.
yeah, Music Cares is awesome. I really like that they have that available, but they, like, paid for a part of my stay at this rehab in Texas, and it was a great program. I wasn't ready. I really wasn't not because I was still so convinced that I was like, I can smoke weed and I can drink because, like, I don't have a problem with weed and I don't
Yeah.
have a problem with alcohol,
Yeah.
and just didn't really understand that addiction is not about it's not a drug problem, it's a me problem, so
Mhm.
it's like no matter what it is, I'm still gonna have that, but it definitely was an important step in the process because I don't think that if I had not gone to rehab in 2018 that I would be sober today and this last time in rehab would have worked.
And that's a great point right there because I mean, like so many other things in life, we oftentimes don't succeed the very first time, right?
Yeah.
You might have an artist project that doesn't work, but are you going to quit or are you going to start the next one, right? You might have a business. Most successful business people have many businesses before they actually work. So I think there's a powerful lesson in that is like, all right,
Yeah.
even if the first one didn't work, fucking get up and try it again and keep fighting and keep going because there is light at the end of the tunnel and you're such a great example of that.
Yeah, I think, it's still like a constant, maintenance
Yeah.
thing. I don't think
Yeah.
sobriety will ever be. I mean, it's definitely easier for me now because it's become such a
What do you do for that now?
what do you mean? Like for what?
How do you stay sober? How do you continue to, stay on the right path and stay strong?
Well, I think like a lot of people think that it would be like harder in music to be sober, but I actually sometimes think it helps because I see how stupid people act when they're really fucked up, and I'm just like, damn, I'm so glad that's not me. Um,
That's a good one.
But, like, that's just my experience personally, like, there's so many times where I've, like, been out and I, like, just see how fucked up people get, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, like, this is so embarrassing for you." Like
Yeah.
and not even in, like, a cocky, like, "Oh, I'm so much better than you because I don't think that way at all, like, I don't give a fuck if people do drugs or drink, I don't care. But, like, a lot of people overdo it, and they don't even realize it because they're fucked up.
Yeah.
And, like, I was the same way, what they say, like, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and I feel like a lot of the, like, luck that I've had in my career in the last couple years coinciding with my sobriety, it's not an accident. It's because,
Yeah.
like, I show up every day for myself and for, like, my music and whatever, and I think it's just, like, the main thing I think that keeps me sober is like the choice between like self love and self destruction.
Mhm.
So it's like I could choose if I feel like shit to go do drugs about it, or to go eat like shit about it, or to fucking do something that's harmful to me in some way, to go hang out with some guy that doesn't treat me well. Or I could choose to like love myself and nurture myself. And by self-love, I don't mean like narcissistic, like, yeah, I'm the shit, because that's not what self-love is. Like acting in self-love is like you can act in self-love when you fucking hate yourself. If I look in the mirror and I'm like, "Damn, I look so ugly," or "I look so fat," or "I look this," or "I'm that," and I'm in my flop era and everyone hates me and I hate myself, but I choose to, like, I don't know, do a fucking face mask or, like,
Yeah.
clean my room, like, that's acting in self-love, and, like, if you act, like, feelings will follow, you
Yeah.
know? Like, if you nurture yourself and you take care of yourself, like, those feelings of, like, "Okay, like, I'm glad I did this," and then you're, like, acting in, like, alignment with yourself, like, that kinda stuff definitely helps.
What are some of the other things that you do? And what can people do to love themselves?
Well, I think just important to be kind to yourself, but I know that's like easier said than done because I am so mean to myself. Like I am the type of person that will like I will eat like some French fries and I'd be like, I am such a disgusting fat human. Like, and I'm just like so mean to myself. But then it's like crazy because like I know that's not true, but then like I just still am like so mean to myself. So I think like um trying to just, I guess, remind myself that that's not true,
Yeah.
even though sometimes emotionally I do believe it to be true. And then also, like, trying to think like, I remember when I was playing at Red Rocks, I, like, saw myself on the screen and I was like, "Oh my god, I look so fucking disgusting." Like, and I was, like, really sad the whole day because I thought I looked so horrible.
Mm.
And then, like, my friends were, like, telling me that they thought I looked great, and I really had to, like, battle with myself to, like, believe them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the one that's not viewing things correctly, like, I have really bad body dysmorphia,
Yeah.
and it's, like, such a trip because I literally will see stuff that's, like, not real,
Yeah.
you know?
It's so true though. I've been stuck in that as well where, last year like I had a good like 2 months where I was really depressed and I was just like super low confidence and really out of my power and I had so many of my friends that are like, "Dude," like I kept getting this feedback. They're like, "Man, I just wish you could see how amazing you are." And it's like consciously I'm like, I know I am. I know I'm the shit. I know I'm a great person. I know I've done all these incredible things. Like I know that, but like it was so buried, it was so lost, and I didn't feel it. And it's kind of like you can have as many people as you want outside of you seeing it and saying it, but it's really not
Yeah.
until you see it and you feel it and you believe it. And I don't really know the answer, but we gotta. That's the only thing that matters is what the fuck do we feel and do we see about ourselves? It's the most important
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I also think, like, being hot is a mindset, right? You'll see the most, like, normal people that you're like, "Damn, like, okay,"
Oh
you know,
yeah,
because they're just so fucking confident
it's
and they just,
energy.
like and so I like what I've been doing recently is, like, because 'cause I've really struggled, like, finding comfort and, like, beauty in myself since I've gotten sober because I've gained weight and I, like, was so used to being, like, literally so skinny, and now I look at pictures of myself and I'm just like, "Holy fuck, I looked so skinny."
Yeah,
But at the time, like, I still thought I was fat, you know? So, like, now what I've been trying to practice is, like, even down to, like, the way that I walk. Like, when I was in Vegas, I was like, "I need to walk with confidence." Like, I
yeah.
need to put on my hot girl walk right now, you
Let's
know? Because,
go.
like, not, like, walking, like, with my head down, like, all, like, shy or whatever because, like, that confidence, like, you don't have to believe it. Just
Yep.
do you just have to, like, fake it till you make it type shit.
Yeah.
But as far as, like, other things that I do to, like, nurture myself, I think, like, just keeping my space clean. I will turn my phone on do not disturb because, like, getting off of social media is, like, really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll play video games. Video games are really healthy, I think, distraction for me because I get really into them. And, like, talking to my friends too, like, most of the time, your problems or, like, the ways that you feel that feel really, like, fucked up in your head, when you tell them to people, you kind of are like, "Wait, that's not,
Yeah.
like"
Well, it's like,
I'm kinda tripping, you know?
our we carry all of these thoughts inside of our mind, and we have mental energy. It can be so draining. We can exhaust ourselves literally just sitting there thinking. And it shows that there is real energy behind our thoughts. And so oftentimes when those thoughts are just stuck in your head, they're circling around, they don't have anywhere to go. But when you start speaking them out loud, that energy gets out of your mind and just out into the universe, out into the world, and you're not holding on to it anymore. I think journaling is the same way. I love
Yeah,
journaling. I'm just
journaling's
like, let me
good.
just get it out of my mind and it's onto paper, and there's a bit of a release
Yeah.
that comes
Even
with
if it's,
that.
like I've, like, had times where I'll, like, be in my notes app, like, where I'm, like, really just feeling like shit about myself. I literally have notes where it's just entire paragraphs being like, "You're so fucking stupid." Like, literally just,
Yeah.
like, me talking to myself and being, like, just super mean to myself, but, like, getting it out,
Yeah,
and
purge
it's
it.
like but also the other thing I was gonna say, like, on that topic is, like, acceptance is a part of it too, where it's like, if you feel like shit, don't try to make yourself not feel like shit. Just,
Mm,
like, do things to, like, take care of yourself and, like, if your friend was feeling like shit, if one of my best friends came to me and was like, "Hey, like, I feel like shit right now," you'd be like, "Do you wanna go get food?" Or, like, "Come over and we can, like, do some fucking self-care stuff," like, kind of treating yourself like you would treat, like, a sick friend or,
yeah.
like, somebody who's struggling
Well,
too, and I think, like, part of that is accepting that in the moment, like, even though you're doing these things that are going to, like, make you feel better once the emotion has passed, but, like, when you feel like shit, like, you're gonna feel like shit. Pain is, like, an inevitable part of life. Suffering, I believe, is, like, a choice, but pain is, like, inevitable. You can't get away from it.
and like you said, what your friend would do ultimately is they might try to do something to shake things up and get you out of it, but ultimately they would love you. And that's what we need to be doing with ourselves. Even when we
Yeah.
are low and we do hit those slumps and we don't feel great, we oftentimes just beat ourselves up. We double down. It's like, I feel bad, and now I'm beating myself up for feeling bad. And
Yeah.
can we love ourselves in those moments and be tender with ourselves? Like, hey, it's okay. You're having a bad day. This is part of life. You're feeling some pain. This is part of life. I still love myself anyways. I still know I'm killing it. I'm still a hot girl. I'm still fucking doing
Yeah.
good. It's like I'm just having a moment, and let me accept that moment and love myself in that
Yeah.
moment rather than doubling down on beating ourselves up, which is, I've done 1,000 times. You've made such great progress, like getting out of where you were before, right? Like really being at like the bottom of the pits, at like a rock bottom. And now you're kind of killing it. You're playing
Thank you.
shows, you're putting out sick ass fucking music. I'd love to hear a little bit, about where you're at now and what's going on now just in life and in your career. Like obviously continuing to be on this path of recovery and doing the things you need to do to stay healthy, but whatever you're doing is working because you're fucking
Thank
crushing
you.
it. So,
Thank you.
yeah, tell me a bit about what's going on in the world of Hades right now.
Right now, I'm just working on a lot of music and, like, I've been touring a lot, so, like, just trying to take care of myself and my body, like, amidst all that
Mm,
because it is really exhausting, and I think that, like, the lack of sleep definitely can put me in these, like, very depressed
yeah.
states of mind. So I think like that self-care piece like definitely comes in to play a lot, but also one of the like best pieces of advice like I ever got was actually from you like years ago where you were like asking me like what would you be like outside of music? Like if you couldn't make music like tomorrow, what would you be? And I remember being like nothing. Like I would be nothing without Hades, you know? But I think like remembering that even though I'm passionate about music, like Hades is a business, it's a project. And
Yeah.
like it's a piece of me, but like in order to operate properly and like treat it like chess, not checkers, I need to like be objective and be strategic and operate it like I would operate a business
Yeah.
because it is one. I think that separation has helped me where I am now, because it is a job, it's a job that I'm passionate about and I'm grateful for, and I put a lot of my own self and creativity into, but it's still like a separate entity from me as a human being, you know?
Yeah. I don't remember asking you that question, but I will answer it for you. Who you would be is Savannah.
Yeah.
And who she is a fucking badass, strong, powerful, amazing, resilient woman that
Oh, thank
brings
you.
a lot of light to the world. So don't
Thank you.
ever forget that. If you do, fucking call
You probably
me.
will.
I'll remind you. I I a part of me kind of misses your calls when you were breaking down and you needed those pep
I
talks. So
know.
remember, my door is always open. But I love that you bring that up because I think that's such an important thing, especially as artists become successful. I've seen so many people lose themselves in becoming the artist. It's like everybody calls you the artist, right? A lot of people are calling you Hades. They're not calling you Savannah. I remember seeing one of my friends who's a very successful artist and I remember like just seeing him, we bump into each other. I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man? How have you been?" And he's like, "Oh, like I've been good. This project is coming out and I'm going on tour with this and I'm doing that. I'm doing all, it's like he just started listing all of how the project was doing. And I was like, "No, no, no."
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't ask how's the music going. I said, "How are you doing?" Like the
Yeah.
human. I want to know how the human is doing. And it can be so crazy to kind of lose yourself in that, especially when you're kind of living two lives. It's like one minute you're on
Yeah.
stage in front of tens of thousands of people and you're the center of attention and everybody sees you for what you do rather than
And then you're,
actually
like,
who you
alone in a
are. Yeah.
hotel room.
Yeah, right? And then you're like
Yeah.
back home in your apartment taking out the fucking trash like a normal person and that I remember hearing Flostradamus speak about that being as one of the biggest challenges of like kind of being the highs and the lows, or just like the
Oh,
highs and then
yeah. It
coming back
is
to
tough.
normal civilian life, and it's like an emotional mind
It
fuck.
is.
Yeah.
It is. It's definitely, like I've definitely had, like, a few, like, breakdowns, like, just because 'cause you're in these, like you're flooded with, like, validation, and you're
Yeah.
flooded with
It's like
love and this high,
yeah,
and then you're
adrenaline and dopamine and like I imagine what's happening like neurochemically in your mind as well.
yeah. It's like drugs, and then, like, you go and then you're, like, alone in a hotel room, and nobody's texting you back because it's 4 a.m., and you order Uber Eats, and they get your order wrong, and you just wanna die, and you're like it sounds so stupid, but it's just such a stark contrast, and I've definitely had, like, issues with that.
What do you think artists need in that? Like what kind of support do artists need? It's like there's the physical demand of feeling like physically drained, but there's also this emotional roller coaster that people are on. What what would help artists stay centered and grounded? What do they need?
I mean, I can only speak from, like, my own experience, but, like, what I do is when I get back from the show, I will, like, usually shower, or, like, if I'm lucky enough to have a hotel room with a bath, I'll get to take a bath,
Step
which is
number 1,
amazing.
wash your ass.
Yeah, literally. So, there's that, but also that's just, like, a way to, like, nurture yourself too. You're cleaning yourself, and, like,
Mm,
I do this, it's very, like, a quick kind of meditation when I'm, like, showering or, like, bathing of some sort, and it's just, like, visualizing, like, just kind of, like, getting rid of, like, all the, like,
the
shit,
energy. Yeah.
and all of the bad energy, whatever, all of like, fear, desire, like, all these things that, like, I just need to, like, get rid of. So I'll do that, and then the other thing that I'll do is I will, like, pack all my shit up. So, like, I just organize everything so that I don't have to worry about any more logistical bullshit, and then sometimes I'll call, like, a friend if I can call a friend. If it's not too late, call, like, my managers and chat with them. I'm really lucky to have a group of close friends that are typically up pretty late.
Yeah.
So, I think talking to them is definitely helpful, and then sometimes I'll literally just, like, lay on the bed and, like, vape and watch, like, TikTok or something, just to put myself in, like a chill space,
Yeah.
but it's different for everyone. I also bring, like, books and stuff. I don't always read them on
Yeah.
the road because I'm just so, like, adrenaline going crazy when I'm, like, leaving the show,
Yeah.
but
I'm so intrigued by all of it because I am sitting here in the comfort of my own home every day. I have my morning routine. I go to the gym. I eat healthy. It's like I don't have the same kind of physical and mental and emotional challenges that touring artists do. So it's like it's so easy to sit here and be like, "Oh, well, you should do this and you should do this to stay healthy." But I haven't actually experienced that for myself. So it's like it's really interesting to hear that.
I have a routine even though I am very, like, not good at routines, if that makes sense, like and even when I'm home, like, I'm bipolar, so, like, my energy imbalances a lot, and, like and I take medication for it, so it's, like, pretty, like, normalized, I guess, like, I don't have these crazy high highs and these crazy, like, depressed, like, lows, but I do still get into, like, manic and, like, depressed states, and they mostly now, with medication, just look like maybe I spent a little bit more money than I should, or, like, I stay up really late and then I get up at, like, 9 a.m. and I'm like, "Time to clean my whole house," or, like, depressed states where I just sleep a little bit too much or whatever. It's not really a, like, happy, sad, it's more just like a imbalance of, like, energy. So, because of that, it's really hard for me to have consistent sleep schedule, and, like, sometimes I'm getting up consistently for a week, I'm getting up at, like, 8, 9 in the morning, and then sometimes I'm getting up at 12:30. Especially with touring, that sleep schedule is really hard to regulate. So what I've done is like forced myself into other routines. So it's like no matter what time I wake up, I always wash my face, I brush my teeth, I like sit down, I look at my planner and I'm like, okay, these are the things that I have to do. And recently I've like started working out more. So like that has definitely become like a part of my routine. Whenever when I'm on the road, it's more or less the same thing, even though like I can't cook and things like that. It's like I get up, I wash my face, I brush my teeth. If I'm leaving the whatever city it is, like I make sure all my shit's packed up before I chill out and like relax. So I think it's even if you're not doing the same thing at the same time every single day, you can still have a routine.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that's really important, like, that ritual is really important for me because if I don't do it, I start to feel insane,
Yeah.
and I feel like everything's out of control, and I don't like that feeling when I already have such an irregular, like, balance of energy in my life, you
Yeah.
know?
Let me ask you one more question. What advice do you have for up and coming artists that want to get to where you're at and start touring and having success in their careers?
I would say let go of your expectations because my life got a lot easier when I realized that nobody owed me shit. Entitlement is a really ugly quality and it doesn't do anything but like repel the things that you want. There's no one way to do this. Everyone has a different leg up or a different set of circumstances because they might know somebody or they might be more plugged in or they might have, a stronger brand or a stronger personality on the internet that makes people more drawn to them, even though their music might not be as good as yours or whatever. These are like common things, but everyone's like journey is their own and everyone's set of circumstances is their own. And like when you stop comparing yourself to other people and like realize that the industry doesn't owe you anything and you just need to keep going and like work harder. There's only, power in that because I know people that blew up in 6 months and I know people that like me who have been doing this for like I've had this project since like 2014, 2013, 2014. So it's like it's taken like almost 10 years to even scratch the surface of like what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so there's no one way to do this, just being a good person and treating people with respect and treating yourself with respect and just not expecting anything of the world or of the music industry because yeah, I think that's the best advice I could give
I
probably.
I really can't tell you how awesome it is to hear you say all of that because yeah, knowing the Savannah from 5 years ago, she wouldn't have said that. She wouldn't have known.
I know.
And it's just such a great indication of how much growth you've gone through and how much of a transformation you've gone through as a person and as a human. And I just want to say I'm so proud of you and I'm so
Thank
excited to
you.
see what you do from here. And thank you so much for taking the time to hop on with me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy that I was able to do this with you.
My chains are falling.